Hi, my name is Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to run through a little example of how the lockdown has been deliberately relaxed over the past few weeks, stage by stage, and how the results are already in, showing it to be a mistake. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So the government officially eased the restrictions in the week beginning May the 11th. Yeah, May the 11th. But the week before then, the first real full week of May, the right-wing press were heavily reporting the imminent end to the lockdown. And of course, this was also coupled with it being the week of the special VE bank holiday weekend. Now, at this time, it was clear to me, just observing things locally, that people were moving themselves out of lockdown. You saw the odd sign of people who never really followed the lockdown procedures, but, you know, a lot of people seem to be. I don't want to say most, I don't know. A lot of people seem to be. But it was now evident that lots more were doing so without any change in government policy. That being said, the government didn't really do anything to get the message out there that they shouldn't. You know, the papers were reporting this. The government, although it reiterated its position, it didn't specifically say, and it needed to, these newspaper reports are wrong. They didn't. You know, it was a mere whisper about not jumping the gun a little bit too early. That's all we got. And thinking about it from the point of view, so if you're a member of the public and let's say you're not fully seized of the need for the lockdown anyway, because you're getting it from a lot of sources and the government are not exactly pushing the idea that it was necessary, even though they themselves installed it. So you're not happy about the lockdown, and then you're told it's ending anyway. Why wait a few extra days? Particularly as you're thinking, well, it's nice sunny bank holiday weekend, the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday, and why would I wait till Monday? Of course, they were always going to do a street-wide conga. The following week, the government did officially relax the lockdown restrictions, allowing anyone to go out in public for any reason. In theory, there was still a list of reasons to go out in public, but given that one of them at this point onwards, and still is the case now, is you're allowed to go out for your emotional well-being, that basically allows anything. So the police cannot do anything if you're out in public, as long as you're distancing. If you're not distancing, then they can talk to you. But they can't say to you, for what reason are you out here? Because you can just say, I'm here for my emotional well-being. There we go. Obviously, that's an intensely personal aspect. You know, they can't say, no, you're not, because that's personal to you. The week just gone, of course, there wasn't an official relaxing of the restrictions, but effectively there was a relaxing because we had the Dominic Cummings scandal and, of course, the disgraceful handling, which was the key part of it, that meant that many more people were breaking what few rules remained in the lockdown. Police forces across England, at least, have been complaining that a lot of people are now ignoring the rules, and when the police are approaching them, they're citing the example of the defence of Dominic Cummings to do whatever they like. You know, if Cummings can drive to a castle to test his eyesight, I can sit in a crowd on a beach to test my toenails, or variations on the theme. And now the government are announcing that soon, not today, but soon, people will be able to visit other households, as long as they distance again. As if anyone believes that that's going to be happening in a household. And how do the police that bollocks anyway? So 3 weeks of increasingly relaxed lockdown and 2 further weeks of phased relaxations announced as well. The scientists say that this will usher in another wave of infections. Not only do we not have the essential test, trace and isolate system in place, which I'll be talking about more later today, but we aren't even insisting that people wear face masks when going into, say, shops or other areas where distancing is not going to be possible. In fact, the government's response to this may be to reduce the distance that they say you need to observe between people, because that's their answer to everything. You know, when they didn't have enough PPE, their answer was, well, they changed the guidelines on when to use PPE. You know, and it's the same here. It's not a safety guideline, it's a political guideline. But let's say you choose not to believe the scientists. You go, they don't have to think about the realities of this thing. The government have got to consider the realities, the economic realities, Baileys. After all, Boris Johnson wouldn't do something to hurt us. Not our Boris. Well, it's not really speculation anymore. The problem with judging the effect of lockdown measures is you do not get an instant response. There is a lag in cases being known. If an event, for example, the VE bank holiday weekend, gives rise to a boost in infections, we won't see it for 2 or 3 weeks. Oh look, it's 2.5 weeks later. So what do the results look like? Well, these superb Financial Times analyses of the excess deaths rate, a couple of weeks ago it was showing a decline, a definite decline. It was still way higher than it should have been, and more importantly, much higher than other countries that were easing their lockdowns with better safeguards in place than we have in place. But nonetheless, the trend was downwards. The excess deaths was downwards. Some way to go, but it was getting there. Not so now. No. The latest data shows an upturn. And the important thing to note is that it's everywhere. The only region of the UK not to show this upturn in excess deaths is Scotland. So every region of England, as well as Wales and Northern Ireland, is showing another surge. And remember, this is just the period when the papers were plugging the idea of going out and holding street parties and all the rest of it, which might explain why you've also got this upturn in Wales. Wales, in theory, did not ease the restrictions in the same way that England did. However, the same papers end up over there. Scotland's different. The English papers don't report the same things like the Sun. In Scotland, they have to publish different stories because you may be able to convince a Scotsman that eating haggis is a good idea. You will not convince them that Boris Johnson's got their best interests at heart. And like I said at the time, it'll be June when week by week we see the actual impact of people filling the streets and shops without even the pretense of trying to avoid passing infections on. And I will point out that the uptick is in excess deaths. Because some people might say, well, if you look at the historical data, you do tend to see an upturn in the number of deaths during May. Yes, you do. I don't know the reason for that, but you do. This is excess deaths. So it is measured by historical data. So we're not talking about the number of deaths has gone up. Oh no, that must be coronavirus. The number of deaths above and beyond what would be expected at this time anyway, based on historical data from the past few years. So next, shall we have a look at some international comparisons? So the government may only like to use them selectively, but they are absolutely crucial. The Financial Times provides 3 metrics for measuring excess deaths, and we are the second worst in the world on all 3. It's a different country in the top spot in each case, but we are firmly planted in second place. And of course, the one that people will say, if you try and say, oh, we're the second worst for the number of excess deaths, I go, oh yeah, we're a large country, we've got to compare per capita. Okay, we compare per capita, which is totally fair, by the way, completely fair. And we are the second worst there. But you'll notice top spot is Spain. We're not far behind them. Spain has better safeguards in place than we do. It is surely inevitable that we will be taking that top spot. Some people think we already have, because obviously there's a lag in the data here. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So like I said a few weeks ago, in the month of June is where the government's gross mishandling of the situation will become undeniable. This is when, they really will be slinging mud. They'll be blaming everyone but themselves because they can't deny it at that point. It'll be slinging mud, trying to blame others. They've already tried to warm up by blaming the scientists this month. And just at the point at which we see the full horror of how this pandemic is working in practice in the UK, MPs will be preparing to shut Parliament down for nearly 2 months over the summer, leaving the government to do as it pleases, with only the British media to apply any sort of scrutiny at all. Finally, I would add in my own personal note on what is to come now. So, if you compare with America, for example, President Trump is a lunatic. Worse than Johnson, I think, worse than Johnson. Left to him alone, America would be clearly in much worse shape than it already is. But they have state legislatures which can counter some of his nonsense. Now, all we have in England is ourselves. Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have their own legislative bodies, so they can vary the regulations. Scotland being in the best place to drown out the messages from Westminster, which is why they are likely to see the best results. But we are completely buggered in England. Yes, Cummings and Johnson have shown that it's one rule for them and another for us. Doesn't mean it's sensible to stick two fingers up at them and invite the neighbours round for a barbecue. Yes, they are saying it's safe to go to the shops and to schools without a face mask. It isn't. Yes, they are saying that soon it will be safe enough to go to other people's houses. It won't be. Yes, if millions go against the scientific advice and somehow equate what the government say with safety advice, it will end up looking very bad for the Tories and will be another nail in Johnson's coffin. But it will also mean many, many more deaths. We're already over, significantly over 60,000 when you use the Office for National Statistics data, not the fiddled figures from the government, and the second wave could be worse than the first. And I don't mean because we don't know yet. You know, scientists would suggest that the second wave could easily be worse than the first. So it is still incumbent upon us, of the sensible amongst us, to do what we can. My hair is pissing me off now. It's getting too long. It's annoying me. It's at the point now where sometimes it gets like this because of laziness. At this point, I would definitely be getting to the hairdressers. I won't be. I won't be getting it cut when the government tells me it's safe to go to the hairdressers. Only when the scientists tell me to. And even then, I might do one of those things where I invite a hairdresser around to my place with no one else there to do it for me. And the scientists will speak for themselves, by the way. I'm not going to go by what the government say the scientists say, only what the scientists themselves say. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.